At the center of my world is the sun, lighting me, warming me, I'm so cold. Sun has all the power, I steal some. Sun has all the light, lets me see you. On the edge of my world is the moon, reflects sunlight, lights the night, plays a song, a lovely haunting tune. Stars sing along about you. My world spinning around. My world spinning around, spinning around you. Filling up my world is you. You're the air that I breathe. You share my life, you live it too. I look to find my world and I find you. My world spinning around. My world spinning around, spinning around you. Spinning around you. Spinning around you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pam Wickliffe, and I am a member of the board of this congregation and welcome on this beautiful sunshiny day. And it's even supposed to get warm. Whoa, they can't hear me in the back. Oh, I'm just not close enough. I'm a good leader. Okay, whoops. Now they can, whoops. Okay, the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Elkhart is a welcoming community, encouraging religious freedom, nurturing individual, spiritual, and ethical growth, celebrating diversity, and promoting a just and sustainable world. If you are new here today and you would like to know more about us, you can go to uufe.org online, and please join us afterwards for coffee. Yes. And right now, if you'd please, coffee? If you please turn off or silence your phone for the service. And I'm going to do a little something a little bit different that was added just yesterday. So it's kind of out of order. But a lot of folks mentioned that they like the member musings that we used to have. I never did one when we actually did them. I'm going to do one today. And this was a perfect spot to do it since I'm already up here. I hope it doesn't mess up everybody. Back in around 1990, when I was president, I had just come back from my first trip to leadership school, all full of ideas and all the things I was going to do to change things and make things better, right? As for my year as president. And I ran into an article by Irma Bombeck. If you're young, you don't know who she is, but if you're old like me, you know her. And she had written a couple articles about volunteers. So after that, we started the first version of what we now have as Volunteer of the Month. Excuse me. And it seems appropriate right now because as a congregation, we're beginning again and the opportunity to get better and bigger and better. And volunteers are a part of that, a big part of that. So I want to read to you what the article was that I had read that caused us to start having Volunteer of the Month. This was Irma Bombeck. Volunteers are like yachts. No matter where they are, they arouse your curiosity. Who are they? Where did they come from? And why are they here? They could have stayed moored where it's safe and still justify their being, but they chose to cut through rough waters, ride the storm, and take chances. They have style. They're fiercely independent. If you ask how much they cost, you can't afford them. Volunteers and yachts have a lot more in common these days. They're both a luxury in the world that has become very practical. Day by day, the number of volunteers decreases in this country, and more of them equate their worth in terms of dollars and cents. I once did a column on volunteers in an effort to point out that they don't contribute to our civilization. They are our civilization, at least the only part worth talking about. They're the only human beings on the face of the earth who reflect this nation's compassion, unselfishness, caring, patience, need, and just plain loving one another. Their very presence transcends politics, religion, ethnic background, marital status, sexism, and even smokers versus non-smokers. Maybe, like the yacht, the volunteer was a luxury, and luxuries are too often taken for granted. Well, what we started back then was called Yacht of the Month. So we had Yachts of the Month, and we had that until probably I left for Massachusetts and lived there for a while. And probably after I left, people forgot why we were Yachts of the Month. So we became Volunteers of the Month, and we have stayed that way. And I would like to read one other thing by her, and I only want to read it because it means it's different than the first one, but it's similar, and then I'll be done. I had a dream, this is by Irma Bombeck. I had a dream the other night that every volunteer in this land had set sail for another country. I stood smiling at the pier, shouting, "Goodbye, phone committees. Goodbye, disease of the month. No more getting out the vote. No more playground duty, bake sales, rummage sales, thrift shops, and 3-hour meetings." As the boat got smaller, I reflected, serves them right, that bunch of yes people. All they had to do was put their tongues firmly against the roofs of their mouths and make the big O sound, no. It would certainly have spared them a lot of grief. Oh well, who needs them? The hospital was quiet as I passed it. The reception desk was vacant. Rooms were devoid of books, flowers, and voices. The children's wing had no clowns, no laughter. The home for the aged was like a tomb. The blind listened for a voice that never came. The infirm were imprisoned in wheelchairs that had never moved. Food grew cold on trays that would never reach the hungry. The social agencies that closed their doors, unable to implement their programs of scouting, recreation, drug control, unable to help the retarded, handicapped, lonely, abandoned. Health agencies had signs in their windows, cures for cancer, birth defects, multiple sclerosis, and heart disease have been canceled because of lack of interest. The schools were strangely quiet with no field trips, no volunteer classroom aides. Symphony halls and museums that had been built and stocked by volunteers were dark and would remain that way. Flowers in churches and synagogues withered and died. Children in day nurseries lifted their arms, but there was no one there to hold them in love. Alcoholics cried out in despair. No one answered. The poor had no recourse for health care or legal aid. I fought in my sleep to regain a glimpse of the ship of volunteers just one more time. It was to be my last glimpse of a decent civilization. Well, I'm sure glad that was a dream and that it wasn't true. And I guess right now I'm just hoping that everyone will kind of think about, I've been at this church since 1975, and I've helped build 2 different additions. I have done the yard, I've done the painting, I've worked in all kinds of places, and this church is mine. It's part of my home, because part of me, because of the stuff that I've done here. And I hope everybody can kind of look at it that way, because we do need volunteers now. And, look to see what you can offer, whether it be on a committee that needs people on it, or help in the yard, cleanups biannually that we have, biannually, cleanups, signing up for social justice events that we might have, anything that might help us grow back to where we were. And that's all. Sorry, I'm out of line with my, to start off the day that way, but hope to see you all making this your home too.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Pam. That was beautiful. And my name is Judy Darnell. I'm a member of this committee of this church. And I've got the announcements. After today's service, we will have a special congregational meeting in the gathering place to approve funds to repave the parking lot across the street. If you aren't sure why this issue has arisen, I invite you to tour the parking lot right after the service. Absentee ballots have been mailed out. If you are unable to attend the meeting, make sure that you return your ballots to both President Carl Rust and Acting Secretary Mike Darnell before the start of the meeting. Don't forget that Science and Society meets this Tuesday at 2 p.m. Contrary to information that was published, and I apologize, Science and Society meets the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of each month. Speaking of volunteers, the membership committee is looking for greeters. About once a month, your tasks would include greeting worshipers, distributing orders of service, and passing the collection bowls. Contact Joan Claiborne for more information. This is a good way to reconnect with people that we haven't seen for a while. Committee chairs, and this is something I've been reminded of quite a bit for the past couple of weeks. Your annual reports are due to Carl Rust by this Friday, the 15th, in advance of the congregational meeting, which is Sunday, the 15th of May. The Indiana Center for Middle East Peace is hosting a conference in Fort Wayne on Saturday, April 23rd. It is entitled, "We Are the Earth, Environmental Justice and Moral Imperative, Global, National, Local." Workshops will be presented by several organizations, including the Sierra Club and the Indiana Poor People's Campaign. There is more information on a poster by the bulletin board outside the restrooms. It would be good to have a group of us attend so we could report on each of the workshops. But Vern Thomas's memorial service is also the 23rd here at UUFE. Vern was a longtime member and very active in the adult forum. Does somebody know the time? Because I didn't have that. 1 o'clock? Okay, 1 o'clock. Okay, Wednesday Feasters, our premier social group, will meet at 11:30 Wednesday, April 27th at Bangkok Place, which is at 705 County Road 6 here in Elkhart. If you plan to attend, be sure to notify Mary Adams by Monday the 25th so that she can reserve enough tables. Her phone number and email are in the directory, and she's also here. If you haven't signed up for County Road 9 cleanup already, please do so. There isn't enough room for enough room on the team for everyone. I've been flipping over that all morning. And the more of us there are, the faster we can complete our task. We will meet at the CVS on the corner of Bristol and Johnson at 9 a.m. on Saturday the 30th for equipment and assignments, and I will share a big pan of brownies and some iced tea here at the church afterwards. The rain date or snow date is May 7th. It's Indiana. The sign-up sheet is on the island, and it's getting full, and I'm sure there's extra space at the bottom or the back of it, so we can have everybody who wants to come. General Assembly is coming up in June. This is a last-minute addition, so I didn't get the date or the place, but we are allowed 2 delegates. It is a hybrid service, so you don't have to travel any further than your recliner. More information is on the UUA website, and I will have more information for you next week. Last week's offering brought us $105 for our sustainability fund. This week's offering will be shared with the Elkhart Women's Shelter. You will find the offering bowls on the island in the foyer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pam and Judy, and good morning, everybody. I'm happy to see everybody here in person. We have a few people on Zoom. So we're trying to make some decisions about Zoom, keep Zooming, or just record the service, make it available. So if you have thoughts on that, let me know. I want to remember the folks in Ukraine and send our thoughts of peace and healing to them. Hopefully you'll stick around if you're a member for the parking lot meeting. We have some important decisions to make. Also, if you haven't responded to round 2 of small groups, we have questions posted in various places. And one of the big ones that we're going to have to decide pretty soon is what level of ministry do we want? And the price tag comes along with that. So if you really want a full-time minister, I urge you to think about increasing your pledge. I guess we're ready for the Chalice Lighting gong.
We ring the gong 3 times. Once for those who came before us and made a place for us. Once for those who are here now. And once for those who will come after us and build on the dream. Our thought for the day is a mashup from John Muir. I hope he'll forgive me. In a general way, his music is that of the streams, refined and spiritualized. The deep booming note of the falls are in it, the trills of rapids, the gurgling of margin eddies, the low whispering of level reaches, and the sweet tinkle of separate drops oozing from the ends of mosses and falling into tranquil pools. Who publishes the sheet music of the winds or the music of water written in river lines?
Please join me in our unison covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our
Good morning. Our guest speaker today is Liam Lynn, whom I met during my time served at IU South Bend. Liam doesn't know, but they encouraged me by example to be an active participant in their community instead of an audience member. Liam Lynn is a doula, reproductive health and childbirth educator, documentary-style photographer from South Bend. Liam has a BA in gender studies and is a certified full-spectrum doula and childbirth educator through Doula Trainings International. Liam established the solo practice Kismet by Liam Lynn in 2018. Liam is deeply invested in this work, which they describe as witnessing, capturing, and helping shape powerful beginnings and documenting what it means to be and become. Liam has prepared a sermon for us today titled The Power of Bearing Witness to Small Histories. Please welcome them.
Whew, that was beautiful. All right, let's get this situation going. Okay, can everybody hear me? We're good. No, you can't hear me. Is this better? All right. Let's see if I'll lean in the whole time. I get a little. Just tell me, show me in the back if you can't hear me. So thank you for that lovely introduction, Chloe. And also, oh my gosh, thank you. So as Chloe said, and I might repeat some stuff, yeah, I'm a doula, a reproductive health educator, and a portrait and birth photographer. So I live in downtown South Bend, and hoping one of these Midwest spring mornings I will be warm enough to do my favorite thing, which is walk downtown, get a cup of coffee at the co-op. Yeah, a little bit about me. I'm a romantic, old school lesbian romantic, fall in love with everything all the time. Love movies that make me cry. My favorite background show, like rewatch show though, is New Girl for sure, forever. Did I hear some like agreement? I am queer, kind, optimistic, creative, irreverent, and as Chloe said, I'm always deeply invested. We'll do a little more. Still can't hear me? I don't know. I think it's too tall. I'm short. I'm so sorry. Blame my mother. I think that's better. Yeah? How do we feel? How are the feelings? Gotcha.
Talk right into the mic.
Talk right into the mic. Okay, all right, here we go. As Chloe said, my entire career has been in reproductive health. I've worked as a medical assistant to a women's health nurse practitioner. I've done community organizing, project management, all kinds of things. And now I'm a certified doula. As a documentary style photographer, I seek what it means to capture what it means to be and become. Really what I am is a keeper and teller of stories. And I think anything I do moving forward in my career and everything I've done is really an embodiment of that. And like Chloe said, started my own practice in 2018, like gave me this opportunity to reflect on what I wanted to do. Also gave me some funds to be able to do that, which is really important. And so I decided to move closer to those stories with my heart, my hands, and my camera. Still good on sound? We're about to get into it, okay. So doula, reproductive health educator, and portrait and birth photographer. This sounds like a lot of things. Fair enough, but it's all very much interconnected. And I'll share what my job looks like, what it looks like in a day of my life. But it all really weaves together to create this supportive and positive experience with each client that I work with. I hold space for the spectrum of reproductive experiences, so conception, pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. My approach is inclusive. I work with queer parents, solo parents, It's also trauma informed. I believe in the practice of radical self-love and compassion. I'm passionate about body literacy. I believe nourishment is a necessity. And I identify my clients' boundaries, I honor them, and I make a plan for possible challenges. I'm an advocate for their safety and security. I'm committed to creating safe pathways as we work together. I'm also very client-focused, so that means I stay curious about and center my clients' emotions, their intuition, and their decisions. I'm really there to provide unbiased, non-judgmental support and guidance to honor their decisions and advocate for their choices, and help them adapt. Because there's no right way, there's only their way, which I think is true for everyone. So as a doula, what does it look like? What do I do? Where can you find me? I'm a fertility and birth doula, so a conception journey can be pretty difficult, complex, lots of highs and lows. I know this because I have my own. So when I work with people as they go through the conception experience, I support them to establish a proactive self-care plan. Folks are often going through IUI and IVF, so this is really important. It can be hard on your body, hard on your mind. If they have an appointment that the partner can attend or it's going to be challenging, I go with them for that, and lots of things in between, as well as offering a photography session for one of those experiences, like a transfer day. These moments just really, really matter. And then they automatically transition as a birth client if they'd like to into my schedule. So when I attend a birth as a doula, I'm often sitting on this small stool. You can find it in a closet or under the sink in the bathroom. I love this little stool because, sorry, turn my head. I love it because it keeps me eye level with my client. Whether they're in bed or on the birth ball, we stay eye level, which I think is really important. And what I do in that room is I really hold space in there. I send this like energy that kind of creates this nice bubble for my clients so that they can connect during this experience with each other, with their own personal experience, individual that's unfolding. And they can do this because they know somebody is in the room who will be able to help them understand the medical speak happening around them, to explain their options and tools, help them achieve the goals they have on their birth plan while also helping them adapt to any changes. Sorry, my throat. So you'll also often find me kind of leaning forward around my client, pressing my hands into their hips, and not like hollow, right, in your hip joints. Do something called counter pressure. This relieves pain. Think about when you smash your elbow on the thing, you automatically kind of hold it, right? That serves that function, as well as making some room in the pelvis, getting the baby's head right off that bone joint, not comfortable. And you also find me filling a tub, checking the temperature, reminding the partner to wear a swimsuit before they get in the tub, and also to eat so that they don't pass out during pushing. This is really critical to the moment. And once the kid is born, I stay by the bedside. If there's any stitching that needs to be done, which is super uncomfortable, helping them through that, helping with the first latch, establishing breastfeeding relationship, or staying with one of the clients if somebody needs to go to the NICU, or maybe the mom needs to go in their additional care. Stay with the partner and stay with the baby if needed. And when they go home, you can find me in their house, making some tea, talking to them about their birth experience, making food, running an errand, watching the baby so if they can take a shower or a nap. These are in short supply when you take a baby home, as I'm sure many of you know. And I make sure that they have, thank you. Perfect, okay, thank you so much. Thank you. It's during the pandemic, I don't talk this long, okay? You know what I mean? Okay, so for reproductive health education, just to continue just what my life looks like, what it looks like a day in my life. I teach this one-on-one class. We practice all kinds of positions, we do breathing exercises. I'm really focused on helping them balance their head, which is knowledge about birth and postpartum, their heart, their connection to their body, their partner, and their family and support system. And focusing on the body or balancing the body, these physical aspects of birth and postpartum. Talk a little bit about photography. This is like the thing that I really, really love. I love all of this, but it's all very connected. And you'll also find me when I'm like in the birth room with like a camera slung around my shoulder. Lots of these things kind of go together. I do childbirth classes with my doula clients. I do photography with my doula clients, all over the place. All over the place, interconnected, very woven together. Pregnancy portraits, I do them at people's houses as they're doing a common routine together. These are really beautiful. They're not posed. They're just in the present moment. And same with birth photography. I kind of arrive at the space. I do a little nod in the door, and I document the entire experience. I create these chapters that people can have to then look back on and see their whole story. And here's the thing, birth lasts from 12 to 24 hours. That's a long time. That is a long time. And so I'm capturing these big moments that we think of when we think of birth, right? We think of like pushing, we think of the baby on the mom's chest, right? But these are not the most time. There's so many other moments, these small moments. Working through contractions, laboring in the tub, holding hands with their partner, taking a nap, laughing and telling stories, video call with your toddler who's at home with their grandparents. There's all of these small, tiny moments. And my work is about the tiny moments that make up larger moments in people's lives. They are intimate moments where we are creating, becoming, and being, and I call these moments small histories. I'm gonna take a proactive sip of water here. So these experiences and memories are really limited to our own small worlds, but they are really important and resounding to the larger world that we belong to. These are reflections of the past that influence our collective future. And I have a deep desire to capture and bear witness to the moments that may not make it into a history book, but really are the moments that shape us the most. Small histories matter. Who we are and who we become are really tied up in them. They matter just as much as weddings, engagements, graduations, right? All during the golden hour in our best outfits. And I love, these are important, I love them. But the histories that I document and hold space for are liminal spaces. It's like this minutia of change, right? The boring parts. Steady rhythm of breathing during hours of contractions, t-shirts and sweatpants while making pancakes in the third trimester. I'm turning an eye to the transient, right? Giving us the belief, the truth, that we, just as people, not for any particular reason, are worth seeing and in context. There are no best angles, there's no perfect lighting, it's just what is. So this winter I did a project called Get Ready With Me. I simply went to people's houses and documented what it looks like for them to get ready in the morning. This was people straightening their hair and putting on makeup, washing dishes, making toast, cuddling the cat, you know, all those morning things that we do that people don't often see. Moms getting their kids ready for preschool, and even someone who had actually been a previous client of mine, and I did her birth photography, learning how to use her wheelchair to manage her long COVID symptoms as part of her morning routine. That was pretty powerful. And people were overwhelmingly touched by these images, probably more than any photography I'd done before. And you can, if you're on Gram, Instagram, you can see the entire series in one of my highlights there. But they expressed how much it meant to them to have an average day documented, just frozen in time, to look back on it and say, that's what life looked like. To have photographs that are really similar to memory, but they fade away. I was preserving the ones that are so monotonous, but they really lose their color quickly, right? And when I do pregnancy portraits, someone said something very similar. We'll be able to look back and see what life looked like at 30 weeks. There is a quote by Sunny Hart. She's an Australian doula and film birth photographer. Scares the heck out of me to do film, but they are incredible, and I am obsessed with her. She has a quote that I absolutely love, and here it is. A doula is someone who can hold the tension of opposites. A and knows what it is to open and bow deeply to an experience, whether it's in joy or in grief. They don't see failures, they see lessons. They can hold space, bear witness, lament, and celebrate with you, often all at the same time. Some doulas are more practical, others more spiritual, but the most important thing is that they're moving towards life. To move towards life is an act of rebellion in this world, and doulas are innately rebellious, whether they claim it or not. All birth is sacred, deserves to be honored. And she quotes Peter A. Levine and says, trauma is not what happens to us, but what we hold inside in the absence of an empathetic witness. She says a doula is your witness. Yeah, I'm taking a moment to just like, whew. So I spend a lot of my time in sacred spaces, but the thing about sacred spaces is that I don't think most of us know when we're in one. So a sacred space is both a place and a time. It's the minutes when we're waiting for a pregnancy test, and when you're in labor and you're walking through the hospital doors, like that excited and nervous look with your partner. These are sacred moments. The sacred lies in the really common and forgotten when we're usually most within ourselves. Menstruation, conception, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and menopause are sacred spaces of time and place that are the ordinary. Yes, we have curated designated milestones, for sure, that we share: pregnancy announcements, maternity photos, newborn pictures. I mean, a newborn in a tiny little ball in a swaddle is like the best thing on earth. Like, I can't, right? These are gorgeous, and we have those established in our society as tradition. But I spend most of my time in the ordinary, and the ordinary moments are where we become. It's where we have the opportunity to step fully and confidently into a more whole version of ourselves. The ordinary moments are when the best can happen and when the worst can happen, and the difference in outcome is dependent on the presence of that empathetic witness. So let me tell you a story about my period. Are we ready? So when I was 12, I got my period. I had gone to school wearing my favorite skirt, and if I knew where it was today and it fit me, I would wear it every day. I don't know where it went. It was this long blue skirt, had tiny flowers on it. So I was wearing my favorite outfit, okay? And I was getting ready for swim class, and I just noticed, okay, I've started my period, all right. So I went to the nurse's office. The nurse gave me a pad. It was the size of Texas, just in case you're wondering what middle school nurses are holding in there for people who start their period. It was memorable. And then in between my classes, I'm like chatting with my friends about it. And that day when I went home from school, I told my mom. She's excited for me. She called my aunt. It's this whole thing. And then that night I went to a friend's house, stayed the night. She asked all kinds of questions about how it felt, and it was a really positive experience. It shaped who I am today pretty profoundly, not because the physical experience was particularly enjoyable. It was fine, but it wasn't because of that. Most people I talk to, though, their stories about their first period are not only negative, they're really traumatic. But the difference between their stories and mine is the presence of a witness. So I had a witness to my education. My mom gave me books to read and shared about her period openly. I had a witness to my needs as a nurse handed me a pad the size of Texas. She also had a very nurturing smile, and she waited outside the bathroom door if I needed any help. A witness to my retelling, my mother listening to me tell her all the details of it, processing this major life event that actually was kind of boring. A witness to honor the importance, calling my aunt, who was 2 states away, so she could congratulate me. A witness to my girlhood, as my friends and I whispered about it with each other, and I spent the night at that friend's house. Because trauma is not what happens to us, right? It's moments through that experience did make me feel unsure, kind of weird, but the witnesses in my story are what prevented it from being traumatic. So, like I said before, this is like pretty short. I made this shorter because I want to hear some stories from you guys about witnesses in your lives and moments where, who were those people for you, and maybe moments where you didn't have a witness and who that could have been and what it might have meant to you. So I'll wrap up by saying this. The people in my story are not witnesses by profession, like I am. They are also part of the ordinary. They're these common characters. There's no sweeping call to action for me here, but there is an invitation to have an awareness of your role as part of the common and ordinary, as a witness to small histories, both the ones around you and even your own. I think small histories matter because they surface our commonalities and our connectedness. And when we bear witness to them for one another, we create belonging. And when we belong to someone, it's when we're safe, right? That's the power of bearing witness to small histories. And that's that. I would love to hear if you feel curious. I feel curious. Thoughts, comments, criticisms, and who witnesses in your lives?
So we have a few people on Zoom, and you can feel free to raise your hand on Zoom, but take any questions, comments.
Well, at the risk of oversharing, I learned at the age of 10 that I should be expecting menstruation. I already understood the birds and the bees, where babies come from, how babies are made. I did not know until the age of 10 that menstruation was part of the process, the cycle to expect. I was a little bent out of shape when I heard about this. Asked my mother, how do we stop this? Fast forward a few years, and I also had to make a similar trip to the nurse's office at my school, where, yes, there was a gigantic pad with sleeves attached. I thought it was a straitjacket she was handing me. So I'm honestly very glad to hear that your first experience was so calm and enjoyable. I have read about similar experiences, and I was convinced that was fiction. I'm glad that you had an enjoyable experience and that it was nonfiction. So moving on to your career as a doula, I personally have never given birth, so there's a lot that I know only in passing about this vocabulary that you've used today, and about your job, which is probably rather different from other jobs. Can you help me understand, what is the difference between a doula and a midwife? Are you the person who catches the baby? No?
That's a great question. So a midwife is a medical professional who is trained to deliver babies and intervene in the medical and physiological needs of the person who's giving birth. And I use this very standard phrase, educational, emotional, and physical support. And yeah, so that's what I do. So sometimes it's hard to describe. That's why I tried to be here's where I am, what I'm doing, but it's really that helping people have a positive experience. And I mostly work in hospitals, actually, as a doula. Sometimes people are surprised by that. I mostly work in hospitals, and it gives people, I understand what's, the medical school, I think they said that, but people shouldn't feel like they have to be a mini medical doctor to have a positive birth experience. That can be really stressful. So taking that stress off of them, helping them interpret what's going on, being hands-on with some massage, and making it just a little more comfortable, right? Taking care of the partner. Yeah, that's the difference.
Thank you. There are also doulas at the other end of life as well, right? And I like that you talked about the small, the small histories. And being witness, because when someone is dying or when someone is in that process, it's also beneficial to have someone as a support and a someone to follow and witness. So it's at both ends of the spectrum. So you're John, my daughter had doulas, so it is to support and be, you're there not for the baby as much as you're there for the mom.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes, for that like parental unit.
Yep.
Mhm. And yeah, I know some end-of-life doulas, and that's really incredible work. I don't do it, but I know some, and they're amazing people.
Yeah, that would be a lovely thing.
Okay, what role does the partner play in this? Do you have any relationship with the partners of the mothers, the men or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. So we meet a couple of times in pregnancy to talk about their birth plan, what's going on with their specific pregnancy, their unique needs, and I spend time. We do this with both partners. Like it's they're together, they're a unit. So I'm there to support them both. And I also make sure that the partner feels really empowered and like they know what to do to support the person who's giving birth during labor. I think that really helps to create a powerful experience. And often dads or partners really like the doula being there because it takes some pressure off of them to take on this very common role of a protector, right? Protecting space, protecting their partner. And they can just be in the moment, that experience, both together and also their own unique experience. Yeah.
I have a question. You mentioned a bathing suit and a bathtub, and I guess having birthed in a regular hospital, how does that work?
Oh, great question. Can you hear me? Is it working? There are actually tubs in a lot of hospitals now, which is really cool. Memorial Hospital in South Bend has a tub in every room. We love to see it, and usually people aren't giving birth in there unless there's a particular midwife that's like really for it, and it's like, oops, I guess you had your baby in the tub. But for the most part, people just labor in there and kind of have that sense of like relieves you from gravity, which is really nice.
Now, can I understand, are you employed by the individuals that are going through the process or by the hospital? And what do you do with the information once it's compiled for a given pregnancy? What happens to that? Is it turned over to the individual for a historical record? Or what happens to your photographs?
Oh, for the photographs, for sure.
Yeah.
People get access to their digital album. So I do like between 30 and 75 photographs. It's a broad range because you don't know how long birth is going to be. But yeah, for a year I store their images in an album where they can print them or do whatever they want with them. But as for your question before, yeah, I'm employed by my clients themselves. This is actually a really important point for me. I really wouldn't want to be employed by the hospital because why a doula works is that we are 100% not indebted, that's the wrong word, but committed to the client. We don't have loyalties to the hospital. It's really important because the hospital can't tell me what to do. And that's kind of sometimes the point for the clients is that the hospital can sometimes be a place where they have some pressure to make decisions that they don't want to make. And part of my job, what actually statistically doulas do, which is lower cesarean rates and intervention rates, is hold space for the family because we are only committed to them and not the hospital staff.
Is there a licensing process that you have to go through with the state? No.
No, not regulated by the state. Could be a bigger conversation too, but I'm very for that. But most people do go through a certification process with a reputable certifying body. So mine was Doula Trainings International. But yeah, I'm certified.
During this pandemic time, where a lot of women had to give birth alone, were you allowed by the hospital to attend those as a, even if their partner couldn't be there?
Yeah, I got really lucky. My clients and I got really lucky in that most of the local hospitals did not limit doulas, which was kind of surprising. Pretty much every other city was dealing with a lot of just like people, even partners couldn't go. It was the World Health Organization had to intervene. It was dramatic. But yeah, I got kind of lucky that I never had a birth room I wasn't allowed in. Yeah, and so that was a very unique experience during the pandemic. I'm really, really grateful for it.
I never heard of a doula. How do you spell it?
Great question. Doula. Sometimes we're also called birth keepers if we're getting real crunchy about it. Birth keepers, yeah, some people call it that.
Okay, I feel bad about not, I feel uncomfortable using this word. Apparently I'm old school, because in my mind, you get pregnant, you go to the doctor's there when you deliver. I understand kind of what you do, but how do people know what you do?
I'll say this really quickly first. Not everybody needs a doula. If people feel super comfortable with their provider and they know what they want out of their birth and it's very straightforward and they have a common low-risk pregnancy, then by all means. I'm not one of those doulas. It's like everybody needs a doula. I think everybody just needs a birth experience that feels good to them. But also the second part of your question, can you say that a little differently? I don't know that how do people know what I do? Like, how do people find me?
Exactly.
Oh, Google.
Google.
Truly, we're in such a digital age, yeah. So mostly Google. I have a pretty hoppin' Instagram account too. But yeah, and then word of mouth, referrals, and being connected to the community, getting involved in just like unity gardens and cleanups and just being part of the community.
Okay.
Well, I just want to say that I wish there'd been doulas and tubs when I was giving birth to my first child in 1986, because I, started what I thought I was having really, really bad pain. So I went to the doctor and she looked at me and did a little exam and said, oh, you're in really early labor and, everything's in good position, but you can go check into the hospital and see what happens. So that's what my husband and I did. We were led into this room and completely, that's it. No one came in. No, we were there for like probably a little over an hour. And at that point, I'm in like really bad pain.
Yeah.
And finally this nurse comes in and she looks at me and she goes, oh my gosh, I'm going to examine you. She's a very compassionate woman, my witness, really. And she says, oh my God, she said, you are 10 centimeters and this is not a head. So this all did result in an emergency cesarean.
Oh my
And
gosh.
my pains were completely, because the first child, like you said, most labors last, 12 to, but this was a very quick labor and it was a breech labor. So anyway, I wish you'd been in that room
wish
with
I'd been
me
there.
all
I
those years
wasn't
ago,
born.
but you weren't born
I
probably.
was a glimmer in my mother's teenage eye. I will point out that's another thing that I really love about my job. Nurses and especially doctors and midwives really don't spend a lot of time. Nurses are there probably once an hour, every couple of hours. Also depends on the kind of nurse you get. Most of them are delightful. Some you kind of wonder. One time a nurse told me that she got into the profession because she really liked Grey's Anatomy. I thought that was weird. She wasn't the best nurse we'd ever dealt with. God bless her. But yeah, the benefit or the thing that's great about my job that I like and clients really benefit from is that I'm there in the room the entire time. And I'm there before they give birth, and I'm there after they give birth and they're home with their new baby. It's this continuity of care that we really struggle with in the United States.
From the standpoint of legality, is there a release and consent between yourself and your clients for the process of creating images, photography, and the like?
Oh, for sure.
And who retains the right to, shall we say, the property of your chronicling the situation, the birth, etc.?
Yeah. So classic contracts, right? That helps everybody feel comfortable. So I maintain the rights to images. My clients have the option to sign model consent forms, and my clients have lifetime rights to the images. So I own them, but they have lifetime rights. There's lots of additional contracts speaking there, like can't change the images, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, make sure that everybody's on the same page. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Katrina. I want to thank you for doing this work. I did not have a doula, but I did use a midwife. I have 2 teenagers now. Growing up, I mean, I wouldn't have had any idea about all the alternatives when it comes to labor and birth, but I was lucky enough to have a women's health class in college where I learned a lot about it, and I specifically looked for a midwife when I had learned about my first pregnancy, and used Lynn McDonald as was a practicing midwife in the area, but she's no longer practicing. She's actually a member of the South Bend UU Church. But yeah, it's so important because we don't know all our alternatives. Medical practice is very focused on creating standards and kind of creating and treating a lot of everybody the same, even though we are so unique, especially in this type of experience. And so my personal experience was that I did plan for home births. My first was a home birth, which my medical practitioner at the time would not allow. She would not oversee it because it was my first birth. But I did use the midwife, and then my second birth, we had misjudged when he was due, and so I did go into the hospital for that one. Very blessed that they let my midwife come into the room with me, and it's just a different experience because your own body feels good in different positions and with different things around you, and to have somebody who can understand and speak that for you when you might not be prepared to do it for yourself is so important. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. I'll kind of say a last thing and a little bit of a response to that. Birth is the only thing that we go to the hospital for that's not an illness. So that's very interesting. I'm very pro whatever the heck you want to do. You want an epidural, let's do it. Let's get in there and I call it that sweet EpiD. Sorry. And if you want a completely unmedicated birth, we can do that too. It really is about empowering an individual to have the experience that they want and also feel held if things change, to prevent it from being traumatic, right? That empathetic witness. All right, thank you so much. This is beautiful. Thank you.
I wanted to articulate something significant today. I wanted to make some poetic connection between the coming spring and today's message of becoming, and of capturing those fleeting moments and of our own emergence from what was. Oh, yes, the chrysalis. So I Googled terms like transformation, butterfly, spiritual emergence, minor things like that. Well, I could have gone down that rabbit hole, but I realized that wasn't the particular rabbit hole I wanted for today's closing. And then I realized I was looking for something. I was searching for the message that Chloe wants to hear. I am not the teacher, I am the student. So I asked myself, what is at the root? Why am I drawn to use the imagery of butterflies on this day? Of course, I could reference the Nova episode and speak about their delicate strength, their feats of flight. But what does Chloe really want to learn from butterflies? And I thought, and it turns out she wants to go to a butterfly farm. I want to go to a greenhouse-like enclosure and be the only human in a butterfly colony, to observe the busy highways of flight patterns they paint in the air, to witness the dappled sunlight play on their iridescent wings, to imagine the sensation of gliding among them, to be speechless. I want to be mesmerized. I want to be fascinated. I want to be inspired. I want to be awestruck. So with that, I say, go in peace, go with love, and go with awe.